thank and welcome the speakers, and Lubita will introduce them at length.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. And we are also greeting all the non-human actors joining us during this session. And this will be our future. Welcome once more. You can see the program of today's webinar is on the screen. And I have to admit that thanks to Barbara Pieta, our dear colleague, the first workshop is already online. So she's really quick. And I suppose it will be very similar with these workshops as well. So you can follow it also then online. And the idea of this workshop came to our mind when we were looking for a topic of the next AgeNet seminar or AgeNet conference. And we simply tried to combine these two beautiful bunches of people. One they got together in the PARNet cost action about participatory approaches with older adults. And the other one, AgeNet researchers and also people who are dealing with aging and generational relationships research in general. And it's an honor for me to welcome my dear friends, both of them, Anna Urbaniak and Anna Vanka, who are a great inspiration to all of us in the PARNet cost action. And Anna Urbaniak is a professor at the Department of Sociology of Jagiellonian University. Has extensive experience in aging research and public policy, conducting interdisciplinary studies in social gerontology. Additionally, Anna is the chair of our, I have to say our, PARNet cost action on participatory approaches with older adults, which connects over 300 members from 40 different countries. And very familiar, we call them always both Annas, Anna, and Anna Vanka is the other Anna, that co-leads the cost action PARNet together with Anna Urbaniak. She's also a sociologist and critical gerontologist interested in undoing difference and the material discursive construction of age across the life course. Anna did her PhD in sociology at the University of Vienna and is currently a research group leader at Goethe University Frankfurt in Germany. Her areas of expertise comprise life course transitions and the reproduction of intersectional inequalities across the life course, aging and technologies, age-friendly cities and communities, aging migrants, and lifelong learning. She has expertise in both qualitative and quantitative methods and has developed reflexive approaches to mixed methods research. So I'm looking forward to this introduction of the beautiful International Handbook of Participatory Approaches in Aging Research, and you will tell us something about the PARNet cost action as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Then please give me a moment. I will try to share the presentation we prepared with Anna. And I guess you will have a lot of fun with us trying to navigate how to coordinate between online and on-site.
I'm trying to stop sharing, which is more difficult than sharing.
Yes, once you start sharing, you can't just stop.
No, apparently. Can you try to share?
Yeah, we are already. Yeah, we are sharing.
We believe we're sharing.
You're
Can
sharing.
you see it? Yes. Hopefully, you can see it. The first slide incorporates two QR codes. One
I cannot see it as an online participant. I'm not sure how the other online participants.
We have a spider. We have maybe just stop sharing now, Anna.
Okay, I will stop sharing.
Oh yeah, now
it
was.
Now it's
oh
okay.
no,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, maybe it just took some time.
Yeah, I think so, to upload.
Okay, so we'll try again.
But if you can just do the same as you did last time, but then we wait a little more, then I think it will be okay.
Now we are sharing again from the room.
Just wait for a second. Yeah, works.
Yes, perfect.
We see two QR codes, right? Yeah.
So, unfortunately, now that we share the screen, I cannot see our online participants. So, Anna, I guess I will try to say, but I invite you to take over the next slide when that will come. So
Sorry, Anna. Maybe we could ask the participants there online to mute themselves because we can still hear some noise.
Let me check. That's
Thank you very much. Okay. So hopefully now that we're getting comfortable in our settings, we can get to some. Of course, I would like to start with huge thank you for organizing this session and all efforts to bring local and online participants for this event. I think it really means a lot for Anna Vanka and myself to be able to be part of such vivid community. So as I said, those are 2 QR codes, and I strongly encourage you to scan them. The first one will lead you to the handbook we will be discussing today, and the other one will lead you to our website, and website of the network that we're representing so far, Net Cost Action. And we strongly encourage you to join us, and we will give you more details of why we think it's a great idea during this presentation. So I managed to change the slides. Now I feel very professional because I'm not sure if you can see it. We have this cool device. I've never used it before, so I feel very intimidated by the whole comfort of this. But Anna, if you wouldn't mind saying a few words.
So before we jump into everything that you can expect when you read the book, when you join our Coast Action, and when you get into participatory approaches in general, we want to give you a little bit of a background story to how Anna and I really got into working with participatory approaches with older adults. We were part of a European consortium in a project called Gendered Pathways to Social Exclusion in Later Life. And as the title already gives it away a little bit, it was about social exclusion and life course events that lead up to social exclusion. And especially we were working on exclusion from social relationships and loneliness. And we were approaching this topic with different methods, quantitative and qualitative methodologies. But we found that it was really difficult to grasp experiences of loneliness and exclusion from social relationships with the methods that we had at hand. So it was very difficult for people to talk about such experiences because this is a very shameful and taboo topic. And we found that depending on which methods we used, whether it was a quantitative loneliness scale or it was qualitative interviews, people would be classified very differently as having experienced or not having experienced exclusion from social relationships. So we were a bit at a loss of what to do and how to research such a sensitive topic. And then we thought, well, maybe if we can't find a way to do it, all the adults themselves would like to tell us how, why, and what they would research in the field of exclusion from social relationships. So we applied for a little bit of funding for a participatory spin-off from that said project and received that funding and started our participatory research journey together with a group of very diverse older adults. Some of them came from the University of the Third Age and were highly educated and very socially privileged. But we also worked with a group, for example, of older women that had experiences of homelessness and were currently living in a women's shelter. And to co-develop really and co-collect data on exactly this topic. And I think for both of us, this was really eye-opening to see, what can we, how can we grasp phenomena differently when we do it not just for older adults, but with older adults. At the same time, we found that looking into the existing literature, and there's really a lot, and we will show you a little bit of the state-of-the-art research, we found very different, very diverse, non-homogeneous approaches towards participation. And actually a lot of our colleagues, especially those working already a lot with qualitative methods or also ethnographic approaches, would say, well, I'm already working in a participatory manner. Why do you call it participatory now? If this is already what we're doing, we're making the voices of other people heard. We're collaborating with them. So what is this just a trend that you call it participation now? So we really wanted to. With our book, the Routledge Handbook, we really wanted to set a cornerstone saying, okay, what is already there? What do we already know about participatory approaches and the debates behind that? What are innovative approaches, something that lead us to future research pathways, but also what do we still need to work on? What is kind of our task for the next years to contribute to develop participatory approaches further? So I think when we go to the next slide, and in the next slides, we will show you a little bit more in depth what this is all about.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. So I guess we already by now learned that whenever we talk about participatory approaches, it's really good to have the common understanding. So before we go into the depth of what Handbook covers and what you can count on within the PANET research network, let's just take a brief look at the terms you might have come across when thinking about participatory approaches, because that's what is crucial for our understanding in PANET, and also to the understanding that we try to build in PANET, is that we want to use this participatory approaches term as an umbrella term that invites all of researchers who either have experience with or interest in at least some of those differently labeled approaches that at heart have the same common idea that, as Anna already said, that you do research not about, but with. And then for us, the population we're focusing on are older adults, and we especially try to reach out to populations that are often excluded from the research, not only based on their age, but also on those intersectional connections. So also gender, ethnicity, and other domains that made them be labeled hard to reach population. And just with Anna and with all colleagues in PANET, we try to ask, but have you tried enough? So we want to look at it not in the terms of how difficult it is to do participatory approaches, but what does it really mean to shift this power relation and do research with and not about a population. So I guess I already mentioned that, but Anna, if you would like to add a little bit to that.
Yeah, so maybe in a nutshell, and based on the literature that we reviewed, we can say that participatory approaches are a specific research methodology that has its own theoretical and methodological foundation. So participatory research is kind of its own field, and therefore we also lobby for it being taught at universities together with, qualitative approaches, quantitative approaches as its own kind of research method and theory package. Those approaches aim to incorporate individuals' voices and knowledge into our understanding. Is one of those quotes that defines participatory approaches. And now you could argue, as I already mentioned, well, I mean, to incorporate people's voices, this is what we always do in the social sciences, right? So it's all social research, then participatory, and we would argue against it. And we will outline some of the core principles that research has to follow in order to gain this label of participation. And the main thing, which we will reiterate throughout this presentation, I think, is really that it's research that's not carried out about or for a certain group of people, but with or by them.
And maybe just to add on to this, as Anna said, we did a lot of research around how participatory approaches can be defined, and we assembled here the most. Well, of course, the first one is ours, right? So that's not very But since we're talking about the handbook that we co-edited, I think it makes sense that we start with what we made of the participatory approaches. So the terms we decided to use is that specific relationship between research participants that we would like to label co-researchers or citizen scientists on the one hand, and the academic researchers on the other hand. So this is really linked to the fact that we no longer understand people as research subjects, but as those who have active say in what research is about, how it's being conducted, and we recognize them as having intimate experiential knowledge and robust knowledge systems. And I think this is something that really lays down the whole way of thinking about participatory approaches in PANET, that this is about shifting this power from academic institutions and academics who have academic trainings and bringing it also to those who might lack academic training, but actually have the knowledge that is equally important and should be equally included in the research. Policymaking and practicing for intervention design. Of course, we focus on research mostly, but we also kind of try to expand it also outside the research domain. Just to put it simply again, for us, the most important thing is that we actively involve different stakeholders, not only researchers and academics, but those who are really affected by the issues that is addressed in the whole process, and that we do shift the power more towards the collaboration, co-creation, and shared decision-making, which quite often is not so easy in our academic settings. Anna, if you would like to give us a few words on origins and evolution of participatory approaches before we move to the PARNet network.
Yes, what you we do acknowledge, and we also try to assemble this in the book. Maybe if you can jump to the next slide that shows those.
Sorry, the book is here. Or do you mean the?
I'm talking about the slide that says origins and evolution. Yeah, exactly. So just that you and everyone on Zoom gets a little overview. Whatever we are saying now in the next half an hour is basically very often nothing extremely new, but it builds upon a lot of roots that have been there in the social sciences for a long time, and a lot of the arguments of colleagues from the past, present, and hopefully also future. And I think what you know best here in this setting is that participatory approaches, a lot of the roots of discussions about participatory approaches are in anthropology and are fed by debates around the crisis of representation. So who can speak for whom, and who can also do research about whom legitimately. They are also rooted in action research, so that is very much applied research, very often from a left-wing activist position, trying to make the lives of people better, trying to improve especially their working conditions. One of some of the earliest participatory works were in labor studies, participatory action research, or critical pedagogy by Paulo Freire. So there's always an idea of making lives better, emancipation, and shifting power relations, and there we come to the third important root, and that is feminist methodologies and critiques. And we will get into a bit more detail about those later. But also participatory approaches have spread across different disciplines, again, anthropology, health studies, education, community development, social work, gerontology. and aging research, and many, many more. And they have taken different shapes and forms in those different disciplines, which means that we are now kind of in a situation where we have this huge umbrella of diverse approaches, terminology, methodology, that with the handbook we try to kind of systematize and make digestible, especially for people who want to get into participatory approaches for the first time.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess that now, as we hopefully have the short understanding what participatory approaches might be, very briefly before, I see that before we go to the handbook, there's one more thing that we will do before we go to the handbook, as Lovita suggested that it might be a good idea to introduce the network to those of you who joined the meeting, as we would be very excited to welcome new members on board. So again, extremely briefly, for those of you who are not familiar with what PAN and Call to Action is, as Lovita mentioned at the beginning, this is the initiative that Anna Vanka and I co-lead, and the main idea here is to develop fragmented knowledge and experiences across different European and also outside European countries on what does it mean to involve meaningfully older adults in processes of research, policymaking, and practice intervention design. And the whole work that we organize within this network has those three common questions at heart. So we want to understand how do participatory approaches impact those who are involved, and here we mean not only non-academic partners, but also us as academics ourselves. How can we meaningfully involve diverse groups of older adults to contribute their perspective and experiences to research, policy, and practice? And finally, how do participatory approaches with diverse older adults impact research processes and the quality of data gathered? So if those of you in the room are interested in those topics and are not yet members of PANET, we would be delighted to hear from you. It's really easy to join us. I mean, you will need to fill some administrative forms, but after that, you will get access to colleagues and knowledge that is being generated in those three working groups. So the working group 1 is focused on issues that deal with health, care, and support. So we look here at participatory approaches with older adults living with health problems in community as well as institutional settings. In working group 2, colleagues are looking at the participatory approaches with older migrants, refugees, and indigenous people, and older adults who might lack access to infrastructures in their communities and places. And in working group 3, colleagues look at technology and innovation. So we try to find the best ways to involve older adults who might lack digital competences, hardware and software, to be actively involved in development of technology and innovation that is directed at their needs. And finally, working group 4 is the one that aims to bring all the insights together and develop something that we labeled this seal of quality. So basically, as we face so many questions on how to conduct participatory research in a meaningful way and what should be taken under consideration, that's something that we aim to prepare as a checklist or guidance for those who might want to be involved in participatory work with diverse group of older adults. For those of you who are not fully familiar with cost action initiatives, I strongly encourage you to visit their website, because there are new 70 actions launched each year. And across all of those actions, there are money who might be spent for your development. So basically what cost actions as funding scheme can fund is networking activities. So this could be either events such as meetings and training schools, mobility of researchers and innovators that would allow you to go for the short-term scientific mission, or conduct virtual mobility grant with colleagues outside your home country. And finally, there are also resources available for you to present your own work connected to cost action topic at conferences organized by third parties. So For those of you who are here, I believe that you might be interested in participatory approaches with older adults. Please visit our website, click join in button, fill in the quick form. You don't need to write me because there is the step that say write to the action chair and inform that you want to apply. I assume we know each other now, so we don't need to write. Just fill in the form and we would be delighted to have you in. We have regular meetings on 6-week basis in each of the working group. And then we have those large international events. Next one will be in Cork. So those of you who love Irish weather, apply and then try to apply to the event. And we will be delighted to have you to work with us and towards those more inclusive research designs. And finally, now we get to the bottom of what our handbook is about. So I'm no longer sure if that, I need to be honest with Anna, we did prepare the initial setting who does what, and now I can't see what we said, who will be presenting which slide. So
I think we are taking turns, and you volunteered to do the overview, but we can also change that.
Yes, so I would be very happy to. Then with Anna, we will iterate somehow. Of course, that what you can see here is that what we use to sell our product, so the handbook. But it actually lives to the promises. So we do manage to have inputs from amazing group of colleagues from all over the world. And what it turned out to be possible because of their engagement into this process is that we try to map different types of participatory approaches in different cultural contexts with different groups, and you can find it all there. We wanted also to take a bit more general overview of methodological aspects that are connected to that what we labeled as participatory approaches. So we will have a lot of insights from those different projects that were conducted. We also worked on one section in the book. We'll say that in a moment, that actually gave the voice to older co-creators themselves to also get the perspectives from those non-academic co-researchers. So one of the main points for many of contributors to the book that was very vivid in their contribution were the issues that we should consider when involving older participants at each step of the research process. So that would include not only ethical challenges and considerations, but very pragmatic approaches on how does it impact on the timelines of your project and what you should consider. And finally, what we try to do in the very end of the book is to imagine what the future of participatory approaches might be. And if you decide to join Planet, we would be very happy to see how this can happen actually. So you can not only read about it, but you can also actively impact on how participatory research might be developed. And with that, I will guess that I will give floor to Anna to introduce the first part of the handbook.
Yeah, and of course we will be rather brief in that because we want you to take a look and read it as well. And not sure if we mentioned this already, but it's all open access, so no costs. You can just download all the chapters from the Routledge website. So we organized the handbook in different parts, again, to be hopefully user friendly. So you find what you're looking for. And we try to do this along the research process, starting with more overarching methodological reflections, I would say, and then diving into the design of a research project and going over the data collection, data analysis, dissemination of findings, and so on. So you can take a closer look depending on which stage of the research process you're in, or you would like to involve participatory elements. So the more overarching methodological reflections that we are included is, I think, first and foremost, the contribution of Anna on the role of reflexivity in participatory research and unequal participation, because I think one of the main points we're making is that participatory work, if done right, can really challenge epistemic injustices and inequalities in knowledge production. But very often, unfortunately, we're lacking, or researchers are lacking, the resources, the skills, maybe sometimes also the willingness to do proper participatory work, which can then result in unequal participation, the reproduction of social inequalities, and tokenism. So reflexivity in that sense is extremely important when we're dealing with participatory approaches, because it's not always like the solution to everything. This is, I think, important to signpost at the very beginning of our book. We have a chapter by Alexander Seifert included, a colleague more in the quantitative field from Switzerland, presenting some quantitative data on the willingness to participate of different populations, younger and older adults, and different groups within older adults. So if you're looking at for answers for questions, who wants to participate in research, then you can dive into this chapter. We have a chapter by Julia Nolte and Hamid Turka about different strategies of involving older adults in the data analysis process, from being more consultory to really doing the analysis themselves. So you can see that you also have different degrees of involving older adults in different stages of the research process. And we have a chapter here by Birgit Eigner-Walder and colleagues on participatory research in applied aging studies. So particularly at this intersection where research and practice merge together, and what are the specific challenges and of course potentials of participatory work in this specific field. After this first part, we continue, as I said before, or Anna, you can continue with the data collection, or the design, sorry, of the research. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So, as Anna said, the structure of the book will present very briefly, so I will really go through it just to highlight that in this second part, when we focus on designing research together with older adults, we capture the contribution from very different settings, and you will also notice that depending on the geographic region, there are different ways of framing why it makes sense to design research together with older co-creators from these early stages. I think what is really interesting for us, as quite often we might be very European-centered, is the contribution from our colleagues from New Zealand. So co-creating cultural nuanced social measures with indigenous elders. They work with Maori people in New Zealand, and I think this is really amazing, as we also discussed with Luba before, the setting that the cultural setting really impacts the way you think and design together with older co-creators. We also have great contribution from Carol Ann Maddock and colleagues on comparison and incorporating all the tensions in the projects in UK and India, and also very dense and conceptually rich texts from Mario Sanchez and Raul Lopez Lopez that look at setting the research agenda with other co-creators. In the third part that Anna will briefly present,
the
data collection.
Exactly. So this is getting now more hands-on. I hear myself quite double.
Yes, it wasn't like this before. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, muted somebody. It should be better now.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. So this is now getting a bit more hands-on if you're looking for actual methods of data collection and methodologies. We have a very nice approach outlined by Cynthia Hammond and colleagues called Promenade Parlante, which is an approach to foster intergenerational dialogue in I would say, environmental gerontology or research on space and co-creation. We have a chapter by Vera Rose from South Africa, who I've recently learned used this chapter to develop a whole methodology to involve disadvantaged older adults into research in different kinds of neighborhoods and settings in South Africa. And again, we are always trying to make these links between the more theoretical fundamental research and the more applied research. So also here we have an example by Christoph, who is also part of our coast action, or active part of our coast action, and colleagues on co-creation of new products together with the older consumers. So you will not only find research in the stricter sense, but also co-creation of policies and practices.
The next part looks at the stage of analyzing and validating results together with older adults. And here again, we try to bring experiences from different countries and different settings and across different topics. So I guess that's probably the time that I realized that we don't have that much time. So I would suggest that Anna, we go very briefly with the next parts and then send you the links again so that you can go and see what actual chapters of colleagues are. And we will move to the summary and bringing all the insights from the chapters together. So the next part is
exactly this dissemination together with other adults, where we have different examples again from the UK here mainly. For example, a later life radio, where a podcast and a radio program were co-produced, the living library, graphic magazines, or also lifelong learning programs as different means of disseminating research.
And in the next part, we try to assemble the examples that would show not only this pragmatic involved of older adults in the specific research stages, but actually from the whole research cycle. So here we would have some great examples from Belgium, of the Belgian aging studies. We would also have some insights from Australia by Meg and Tabitha. And finally, that would, I guess, really put a strong mark on all of us working with older adults were the impacts of the COVID-19. And this is from Canada. So I guess this part is very much around how it worked in different corners of the world.
Yeah, and the seventh part, I think this is our favorite part, because this really assembles experiences from older co-creators in different projects. And we designed this to be in a sort of interviewing format. So we assembled academic researchers and older co-researchers, and we interviewed them, and we transcribed and edited the interview transcripts a little bit, and you can read them here. And we always asked the academic researchers and the co-researchers about their respective experiences in different research projects that they were involved in, and they could give their different perspectives there, and also get into little arguments sometimes, of course, saying, I had a different experience of this than you had. So you can really see this very much first-hand experiences and learn more about it, and maybe also some of them will make you smile a little bit and relate if you already have experiences with participatory research yourself.
And in the final part, we have those more overarching topics. So we gathered here the contribution that would look at that, what impacts on participatory researchers and what impacts on the settings as well. So we have great contributions from colleagues that might help, especially those of you who are new to participatory research work and would like to find the nice resources for the next literature searches. The bibliography in those chapters are really great and designed mostly for support your searches. So I think this is really, even though this is the last part of the book, this might be actually the good part to start with. And I guess that, Anna, if you wouldn't mind to give us the short summary of what all the chapters bring together.
Yes, and I think we have a little bit of a lag here in the online room with the slides, because I can still see the last slide.
Sorry, that makes sense. We experienced that before. So as soon as you get to the next slide, let us know. I'm sorry, I can't see you like same slide, and I really miss this interaction.
Maybe you can just go to the next and go back then to this one.
Okay. So what do you see?
Yeah, perfect now. Yeah, I don't know why. But just to summarize, what kind of binds all of those very different approaches from all around the world together is what we would call the core characteristics of participatory approaches, which is, of course, on the one hand, the co-production of knowledge, again, not about people, but with them or by them. However, beyond, I would say, normal qualitative approaches, a strong sense of power sharing and empowerment. So us academic researchers have to move a little bit away from the power that we're usually holding and the control that we're holding over a research process, and give some control to co-researchers that can do with that what they want to do, which would then ideally result in some form of empowerment and improve the lives of older co-researchers and academic researchers alike. We have seen throughout the chapters of the book that reflexivity is crucial in participatory work, so that it will not become a fig leaf, just a term that sounds good, that will get you funding in different agencies, but it's actually thorough and honest. That participatory approaches work differently in different contexts. So we have to be very flexible, we have to adapt. And they also work differently with different groups of older adults who are not, as we all know here in this room, I guess, who are not a homogeneous group, but are very, very diverse. And so there's no one size fits all. And participatory approaches bring specific challenges to us and to research in general in terms of ethical questions and our ethical engagement, because more than other research approaches, they enable relationships of trust and reciprocity. And for example, we all know that most research projects, they don't go on forever. There's a question of what happens after the research that I think is even more pronounced in participatory approaches than in others. But these are some core characteristics that we will weave throughout the book, or that we have throughout the book, and we will weave throughout this presentation. You will always hear about them again.
I'd like to change slide now.
Yeah.
And hopefully now you can see the main question: why use participatory approaches, combined with the small graphic on the right-hand side?
Yes.
So if you can see that, then you can see the summary of what we discovered with Anna during the literature searches, and also what was reflected in the handbook itself. So when we think about participatory approaches, as Anna already mentioned, quite often there is the sense, okay, it's been there forever. It just changes the names from now. Sorry, it just changes the names depending on different historical periods. But what is always there is that there might be those different rationales that underpin the motivation for using the participatory approaches. And from the economic rationale, I guess some of you might have some IKEA furniture in your place. This this would be one of this economic rationale that if you build your furniture yourself, this increased efficiency and lesser the cost. If you think about the political rationale, this is that what Anna mentioned, that we would argue against participatory approaches being this fig leaf and being just this hip term that it's being used in many programs, because you will notice that in European funded projects and many funders actually do use this political rationale that brings the power to embed the research fundings in the world of people that are co-design. So if they co-design the research with you, there is a higher chance that they might implement the solutions that you as academic might develop with. And there is this greater chance of increasing this uptake of solutions. And it also is linked with this argument of democratizing science and making it more open to non-academic audiences, which is also linked with this scientific rationale. And in basic terms, when we look at the main motivation that were declared by colleagues in the handbook and that we come across in our network, I think they can be spread into two, and we're not here to say that one is better than the other, it's just the observation that on the one hand, we would have these instrumental motivations where we want to collect better data that are closer to life worlds of those that we research, to involve diverse groups and outsource the data collection. And this point of outsourcing the data collection is very often used in citizen science. And then you would also have this other stream of motivations that would be around values. So the value-based motivations would be focused mostly on giving the voice to marginalized groups, break the hierarchy between researcher and research subject, and democratize science as such. And that's what we would argue. So let me change the slide and hope that you can see it. That's what we would argue is making the participatory culture and participatory approaches so predominant at the moment. So that's why it also was easy enough to get the book published, to get such a large group of people interested in the topic, is the fact that we are facing such complex societal challenges that traditional methods are no longer enough to tackle them. And that inequalities we're facing on the level of different approaches to what doing the research means in terms like who gets the funding, who gets to be represented in scientific inquiries, and who gets to build the body of knowledge. They are increasing. So in order to address them, we need to find more innovative ways to be sure that what we're doing is meaningful. So there is also this need for inclusive decision-making in terms of political settings and in terms of those growing inequalities. And also that what we can see very much in the policies driving the academic growth and also in the funding bodies is that there's growing shifts towards engagement and impact. So there would be the different classifications that would explain that we go from this silos visions towards more not even interdisciplinary but transdisciplinary approaches. And we would argue that participatory approaches really address those needs on around transdisciplinarity. And I hope that now you can see the slide with 3 pictures.
Yes. Oh, yeah, not anymore.
See it.
I can now see the key drivers slide, I guess.
So, sorry, what do you see then? Can I, if I check it?
Yeah, now.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I mean, it's actually also a bit random, because if you just listen to us, you probably don't need to see the slide so much. But Anna just talked about the one imperative behind participatory approaches, especially when it comes to research and science, and that is the the motivation to democratize knowledge production. And I think this is something that, at least for us and the community around us, is extremely central. Because when we're looking at this question of who can know, like who do we trust societally to be knowledgeable, to be a researcher, to be able to produce scientifically sound and objective knowledge, then very often we still have this idea that this has to be usually a middle-aged person, very, very often a man, probably as here depicted in a very stereotypical way, maybe wearing a white suit, you know, having glasses, being a natural scientist. And you can already see different ideas intersectionally distributed of who then, in comparison to this knowledgeable person, to this person who we trust to create knowledge, is not to be trusted to create knowledge. And for a long time, groups of people that have not been trusted to create knowledge were women. And today, this has luckily changed, but we still have different groups that we do not find, that we do not estimate as knowledgeable societally. So, for example, children, we wouldn't trust them to create scientific knowledge. But also very often older adults, we wouldn't trust them to create scientific knowledge. And I remember in the early days of our course, or even before it existed, I exchanged with a colleague, Lilian Hung, who is working with people living with dementia. And she's even co-writing her academic papers with her co-researchers. And even though I had already worked with participatory approaches, in this example, I was thinking, like, this is not possible. A person that is living with dementia cannot write an academic paper. But this was my stereotypes and my idea of who is a knowledgeable person, thinking that a person lives with dementia is not a knowledgeable person in that sense. So we really have to also kind of check our own biases and stereotypes about who can know and who can produce knowledge. This imperative to question those ideas stems from a feminist critique of objectivity and objectivity in research and knowledge production. And this feminist critique of objectivity was not necessarily targeted at participatory approaches, but is very much at the core of our thinking today still, because researchers and feminist thinkers in this field had two main points of criticism that we can very much connect to. The one is what Donna Haraway called the God trick, and that is that the scientists, especially those that produce objective knowledge, so the natural scientists, they claim that they are not contextualized. They kind of decontextualize themselves from their social environment and act like, this is why it's called the God trick, like somebody that floats over society and looks at society from a distanced position, this academic distance position, and only from this position it is possible to create objective knowledge. Therefore, of course, lay people, like older adults that are not academically trained, they're much too interwoven into the social relationships and emotions, and they cannot distance themselves enough to be able to produce knowledge. So this is the one idea of science and knowledge production that these thinkers try to argue against, and that we can take up for the participatory cause. And the second point of criticism they raised is that even if we are allowed to produce knowledge, so to speak, there is the central question of power in knowledge production. So academic structures and hierarchies, they still to this date marginalize or silence certain groups and alleviate others, which we today call epistemic injustice. And you only have to look at who is referencing whom, who is citing whom. so which kind of knowledges are gaining more visibility and which are not. And this is also related again to which knowledges are framed as objective, for example, quantitative research versus qualitative research, which are framed as unbiased and which are seen as detached from the context that they are produced in, therefore being more subjective than objective. And if we want to move away from this idea of there is one knowledge that is objective and that can be attained from a position of distance, but that knowledge is always situated and embedded and contextualized, and it's also always multiple. So knowledges are multiple, then everyone can create a certain part of knowledge, and it is the strength of bringing those knowledges together that makes good research, and not the objectivity of one detached person looking at society from above. And I think this is really very much what we can, what we base our understanding of participation on.
So just to briefly summarize what we've been talking about up to this point, Anna just described how epistemic injustice comes into being. And here we are arguing that participatory approaches actually have the power to fight it, that this is one of the possible ways to democratize knowledge production and also make other voices heard. So those voices that might be labeled as the one that are either hard to reach, therefore muted, but also the one that traditionally might have been excluded from the academic discourses, as Anna already presented a moment ago. So we argued that participatory approaches have the power to increase the breadth of the knowledge we produce by including those that before were not active part of the knowledge co-production. And what Anna already mentioned with this beautiful example of exchange with Lilian around our own stereotypes, our own beliefs, participatory approaches really force you to challenge the way you think about what does it mean to the research, especially if you face the group that lacks this academic habitus and brings this fresh air to the room. And of course, this might be very challenging for us, but at the same time, we believe that involving those non-academic co-creators can actually bring much needed advancement in the way we think and the way we create our research and research agendas. I'm just looking at Luba because I know we said that we will have around 1 hour of the presentation. So,
but I stole some time for the introduction, so you still can continue. So
yeah, but the tricky part is that if we start, then we will stop in even worse moments. So I think that organically, that would be probably the part that I think would be wise to let some voices be heard, not only Anna's and mine, so that we can actually have the discussion as we promised in the meeting. This will be also the opportunity to exchange our experiences and ask questions. So I just quickly check with you, Anna, if that's okay, or would you like to add something?
Yes, no, I was actually going to suggest this as well, because we only have a few slides still missing, but I think the main messages I hope we have brought across, and we also brought some examples of our own participatory work and the work of colleagues. But I think this is something that we can also very well discuss with you in a more informal setting when you share. If you want to share your experiences, then we can maybe jump in with some of ours. So I think this is indeed a very good way to stop and open the floor.
So great. I'm just letting you know that I hope you can see it. I'm sharing again the QR code. As Anna said, the handbook is open, so you can download it as a whole book, or you can download the specific chapters you're interested in. And then this other QR code will send you to our webpage, and there's this button that says join. We would be very happy if you click it and then follow the administrative work around filling all the forms. And I guess I will stop sharing this screen to be able to see you. And if there are any questions, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat, depending on what you feel most comfortable with.
And from the technicalities, maybe we ask Christine to follow the chat and the questions there,
Yes.
and some participants here offline, so on site, so the floor is yours as well. I just have to say something, but I forgot, and I hope my boss Martina will with me. And that's that not only this seminar is supported by the Institute of Technology and Social Anthropology, but it's also the project called Ronaro, or Family on the Edge. In Slovak, it's Rodina na rozhraní, so it's a very poetic title. Family on the Edge, current context of vulnerability and transnational family transformation, which we have come on here together with the Institute of Research of Social Communication as well. And we are happy to host this seminar as well as the others 2 days on Thursday and Friday. So this administrative duty is done. And now I open the floor. Maybe we can start here, and then Christine can check the chat. And if there are questions, some pressing questions here immediately. Francesco.
Thank you very much. It was very inspiring, and I have two questions precisely. One is that you don't see a unique model of participatory approaches. So there are many ways of addressing participatory approaches in research, if I understood correctly, various stages of the research, depending also on the willingness and the resources of the research. Then I have two questions. One is about the time, if you think, both of you, as the author of this great book, and seeing all these important, all these various experiences, if you think that it require adopting a participatory approaches requires an investment in terms of energy and resources, and also my personal experiences. Not all the time our research participants do have the time and resources necessary to spend. This, for example, is clearly when you do research with health workers, healthcare workers, social workers, but maybe with other adults can be seen as different. Even if there are many groups of older adults, maybe also older adults who are working. And the last question is about the ethical engagement, because it's universal that I get the fact that adopting participatory approaches means also to having people collaborating in research, and that is an improvement in terms of ethical engagement. But as an anthropologist, I also consider that this may pose significantly ethical challenges. Lot of ethical challenges, and in the book, are they addressed, these ethical challenges? Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much for those questions. I think, Anna, if that's okay with you, I'll start and you jump in.
Yes, please do it.
Okay. So then, of course, I totally agree with you that it does require a lot of time and energy, and quite often many institutions are not really ready to support participatory work. And I think this is something that we struggle across the whole planet, especially when we compare those less research-intense countries where, I will say, in Poland, for example, we wouldn't really have the proper ethical standards to develop procedures for ethical committees, because participatory approaches require this level of flexibility that my university is absolutely not ready to welcome. And there are very precise questions in the ethical forms on how long data collection will last. Can I have already the tools? And I would need to validate the tool with the ethical committee. And whenever I claim that they will be co-developed and I can't deliver them at this stage, I get like, well, then you cannot get the ethical approval. So yes, way more resources than you would plan normally, time-wise, energy-wise. And I think that what we experienced with Anna in the project that Anna mentioned with those diverse groups in Austria, that it probably will also take much longer to get to the stage that participants will feel comfortable enough to address challenging topics. So our topic was on exclusion from social relations. And it was only by the time we ended this 2-year project that participants felt good enough to really deeply engage in the work. I guess to answer the first question, yes, we would say that there is no one way to do participatory work, but we would argue that this is more about the mindset. And really, for us, this means mostly shifting this power relation towards working along and with. Of course, depending on the institutional setting, it might be not possible to have this full collaboration toward the whole research cycle. But the more we try, the more I believe we could push the boundaries and also develop the standards that would allow our institution to better embrace and grasp what participatory work might be. Then you also mentioned that time restraints not only on the life cycle of the project, but also on participant. And definitely this is one of the main challenges we faced. We tried to address it, by the way, to make the participation as open as possible. So not to exclude someone if they can take part only at a given period of time. So we usually would assume that the number and type of participation will evolve throughout the process. But yet again, bringing it back to those main ethical concerns, some ethical bodies might not be ready for such high level of flexibility. And I guess I forgot something that you said. I should have put that in writing, but there was something else.
I don't think so. I think you just responded to.
Okay, but I guess Anna wants to add something. I saw that in her eyes. This time I can see you finally, so yay.
Yeah, sorry. Somehow I also sometimes don't see myself. Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and I mean, I just wanted to emphasize and alleviate what Anna already mentioned, with another example maybe that we're running into in the current coast action. So. Coast actions are this network funding to bring different people together on site and online, and they're made for academics, but also practitioners and policymakers. And naturally, in our coast action, we wanted to include older co-researchers. So that means people that do not necessarily have an institutional affiliation, a university affiliation, because they're already retired, they're older, they're co-creators, they have their specific kind of knowledge, but not for example, the Coast Association that gives us the money sees as being an eligible member of such a network. So we're facing just really a lot of different institutional and legal and also economic constraints and challenges by trying a very simple thing, which is in a project on participatory approaches, including older co-researchers into this process. So I think it's quite funny how when you start doing that, how you see how much the system that we're working in is not designed for participation. And I mean, this list goes on and on. Anna mentioned the ethics committees at our universities. We cannot pay older co-creators, for example. We can only give them things like vouchers, which is not the same as being on a regular payroll, which they would actually deserve if we would take them seriously as co-researchers. And very often also in our own minds and strivings for control over the research process, and having the deliverables on time and the papers published on time. If you would really give up more control to co-researchers, they might not care so much about having papers published in the Q1 journal, but they would care maybe more about having longer discussions, or reaching more people with what we're doing. So I think there's also very different logics at work there that we are only now in the beginning of grasping and getting to deal with. And this is kind of surrounded by the more general difficulty that we have, this lack of knowledge, and this lack of knowledge also very much unequally distributed across different countries. And I think we were both always pleasantly surprised how much institutions in the UK are often already embracing participatory approaches in comparison to our countries, for example, Germany and Poland. And we found many of those differences in our action as well. So I think there's really a lot to do once you open this Pandora's box of participation.
Maybe we could give a chance now to somebody from the chat, so we might maybe could we switch to that if there is an online participant who would like to ask a question. Please feel free.
Not yet questions in the chat, so maybe.
Yeah.
There are not yet questions in the chat. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
no.
my voice. Wait. Andreka, if you want to speak up yourself, please feel free. Or not?
Oh, I think
Yes,
that
yes.
would be me. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Very good. I don't know why I'm struggling with typing today, but so now thank you for giving me this space here. So I wanted to be more practical. I'm not sure, and I'm hoping that this will be of some use to maybe some other people who are already working with these methods. I use photo voice methods, as I already posted on the chat. I use photo voice methods in the context of queer people in Slovakia. And basically, there are two practical issues, right? That would I feel like this is maybe the part of the participatory action research that is somehow and needs to be covered locally in terms of like guidelines and good practices. So I'm fully aware of it. So that might also be the answer to my questions. But basically, the first one in terms of good practice is that I would love to know your views on co-authorship and its coverage within the consent forms. So what is the best practice that you may recommend? Do you even do that? Because we know from different guidelines, but mostly from Western countries, like from Western Europe, we already know that this is something that is recommended as a practice. But at the same time, from the point of view of publications, of the outputs, and of the projects that we are writing, right? We need to. There is somehow still viewed as a complication, even within the circles of researchers that are fully and 100% invested in these methods, right? So I would love to know your good practice on that, and then maybe after I will ask another question because it's already a lot. Thank you.
Maybe I start. And Anna, you jump in.
Wait, I'm going to mute. Yeah, okay, André.
Thanks. Yeah. This is a really, really good question, and one we're also often dealing with. I think what is very...
Okay.
We are back. Yeah. We are back. No. Yeah. Some of us are back.
We see you.
We see you. Yeah.
Yeah, we see you too, but it's kind of slow again. We have a new Wi-Fi, so it should actually work.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay. Then Anna, if I may, I start and you jump in. Just that it's a very good question, and I think what kind of helps us in this process is that a lot of journals and funding bodies, they now provide those lists of different forms and reasons for co-authorship, and very often our co-researchers tick one of those boxes that would allow you to also allow you to have them as co-authors, not just as people that you would acknowledge in the acknowledgements. So I think this is a good practice if people want to be mentioned. I think what we are currently dealing with is the question of anonymity and pseudonymization, because as you mentioned in the informed consents, we vouch for at least confidential treatment of data, and for the fact that people cannot be recognized by their name, which then would be kind of made impossible if they become visible as co-authors, especially when parts of their own data is, or for example, interview transcripts are being discussed in a paper. And so we are the co-authorship of specific people might touch upon the anonymity of others connected to that person, but not willing to be named on a paper. So what we do here in Frankfurt, we ask people if they want to be co-authors, and then we go into a very rigid process of checking if that would have any implications for other people involved in the research process who do not want to be visible with their names there. And then sometimes there are, or we just working with cases where that is the case, where we had to decline the request of a person to be a co-author because it would threaten the anonymity of another co-researcher. And I think this is a very, it's a very delicate situations that we're dealing there now with. But again, I think this is it's a great example where we could, I think, also learn a lot from other countries and other disciplines, how they are doing it. So I'd also be interested to know what your experiences in that are.
Well, I don't have that many yet. I was trying to prepare myself for potential challenges and barriers. I use visual participatory methods, so that's even one level more of a complicated, I guess. But at the same time, maybe, and your answer might be that you don't know, because I mean, in terms of practice, we could be talking a lot, and I think I would take up a lot of space in here. So I'd rather ask another question, and we'll see, maybe that one is going to be useful. So in terms of visual methods, right, we already know that here in Europe we have GDPR, so it's different to look at the guidelines from the US, right? So it's completely different, right? So in terms of visual methods, they basically do not really mention that much of like these like third party consent, for example. Let's say that we have participants who would be, and my topic is safety and these perceptions of safety. So they would be taking pictures of someone that they feel safe with, right? Which is fully legitimate. And the person might be agreeing, right, to this, but then there's no good rigid process of just or good or well detailed process, right, on like how to obtain these third-party consents. So do you have any kind of practice or any kind of reference to give this power, or this much of a power, right? Because I mean, I know that the power dynamics are pretty delicate thing there. So do you have any practice in terms of giving this much power to the participants or informants or collaborative partners, right? Whatever we call them, in terms of taking pictures of potentially sensible or sensitive, data, right? So do you do third-party consents? And if you do it, is there also a data bank that someone could go with, and just to think about these different aspects, or there's nothing like that? Because I struggled to find anything really. I needed to compile it myself.
So if I might, Anna, you jump in.
But Maris, could you mute yourself? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think Andrejka, thanks so much. Questions as I think they are.
Maris, could you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
No, I did. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I will start again.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Everything works now. Perfect. So I think this is really very complex in the sense that we touch this like cascade issue. So first of all, you need to get the consent from the research co-creator to take part in the research, give the consent to use their pictures in any possible outcomes. But also, as you said, now we also need the consent from the other person then they might photograph. So I guess from this perspective, we would need to have those consent forms in place. At my university, this is really strictly regulated by the university policy. So whenever we wanted to use any visual material that was co-produced, we would need to provide the proof that whoever is captured in the picture has signed the GDPR consent form that is pretty standard, and we use it for each and every step. So that's something that we would address with my university. The other thing that I find really interesting, and it happened to us recently when we were doing the research with older care providers for people living with dementia, we asked them to take pictures that would capture their everyday life experience. And there was this one amazing picture that actually captured a family photo. And when we looked at the picture, we could see the different facial expressions, but obviously for the paper, we would need to cover them. So what we ended up with is this really blurred picture with very detailed description of what the picture captures. Well, it makes sense. So I guess you're absolutely right. I'm also not aware of any places where we could find good practices. I would like to use this opportunity to bring all of you interested in that to join in the working group for, because that's one of the aspects we want to address, in the sense to make like this roadmap and guidelines for those different challenges we're facing. And Anna, if you would like to.
No, I also am not aware of any of those repositories, but I was also thinking of maybe there's someone in the room who is, so that could be also a way now to share the crowd intelligence.
No. That's why I'm writing a book about the house. I'm just giving the descriptions. Okay, no, that was just a joke. Okay, any questions from the room now? So we switch again.
We have one more question in the chat.
Yeah, we are switching, you know, one group from the room and then the other one from the chat.
Ah, okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware of this intelligent system.
It's just the most democratic way that I came up with. Okay, so
yeah, maybe it was part of my question, or it inspired me for this question. Thank you, both Annas and Christine. Yeah, if you co-author a paper with your participant, and then there is something which the ethical department finds unethical, let's say, is who is responsible for that? Is it you as the person who invited the participant to work with, that you maybe didn't inform them properly, or you maybe missed out on something, or is it at that point them? Or how do you even?
So I'm not sure if I got it right, because the way we would approach it usually is that you would need to get the consent approval before you start the work. So by the time when you co-author a paper, then those ethical aspects, you mean that they would be addressed, who would challenge them and would say that this is not ethical?
So, well, yes. For example, you would find it ethical with the participant, but then the ethical board wouldn't, or I don't know, because you are coming to this field very as an educated person with all the knowledge of situated knowledges from Donna Haraway, but then your participant might not. And what if that collides within the ethical board, but then it wouldn't give their empirical, like, then you would be again, it's participatory research, right? But then you would be it would also change the way they see the world, because your knowledge would then again, so if they would I don't know how to. Sorry.
I think if I got it right, because initially I thought, okay, that this is about co-authorship of the papers, and then that's something different than from what you said now.
Yeah. So what if some not the message, but something that the participants wants to share is something that's you don't really stand for or you find unethical, but he also is author. And then how do you still see the hierarchy there, or
Okay, now I got it. That's very different from what I understood initially. So yes, definitely that would happen quite often. I think for all of us who've done participatory work, this is something that we face in the stages of engagement, that quite often we are confronted with worldviews and opinions that might not necessarily go along with that what we would believe. And I guess the main topic here is to address it during when the topic emerges. So I guess even if you were writing a paper, you won't write it separately from your co-author. So there would be those joint discussions and the topics. And then I guess what happened to us once was that one of the participants withdrew from the project because he felt that he doesn't belong to the group and he's very different, and he just stopped his participation. That was his decision back then. I never come across a situation when we would exclude someone, even if the comments would be extremely, I don't know, racist. That would be probably the common topic that would appear in some of the research we came across. So I guess by this stage, there would be the co-authored publication where we would represent something. We would acknowledge that there were different worldviews, but we wouldn't label it as something that was the research finding in a sense. So I guess, unfortunately, still there is this power relation, but we wouldn't leave it unaddressed. And I guess, Anna, if you have any examples, or actually if any of you have any interesting examples on that, I think it's a really good question to address, because that's something that really happens often.
Yeah, maybe to add an example there, we have recently done a project on violence in later life. And we did this together with all the co-creators, and we had a lot of very, very vivid discussions about what is violence and what is not violence, especially when it came to the topic of sexualized violence. There were some people who said, okay, this behavior is maybe not okay, but it's, you can laugh it off, more or less. And then there were people that said, no, this is clearly violence. And if we want to do research on violence, then we have to include this. And this is, I think, where the advantage of including diverse voices really comes in, because in this example, it didn't have to be us as the academic researchers saying, okay, well, this should be included as violence, or it might be problematic to say that this is not violence, because there were other co-researchers who said, oh, from my experience and really from my perspective, this is definitely violence. So that it wasn't the dividing line was not between the academic researchers and the co-researchers, but in that case it was between female and male researchers and co-researchers. So I think very often those dividing lines are probably not necessarily only academic, but I agree with Anna that if they were the people that in the very end are responsible for the research project are, in the way that the system is structured at the moment, are still the academic researchers who are being paid and for doing that, and who are being part of the institutional system of the universities and the scientific community and so on. And therefore, in whatever case, I guess would have the final responsibility for that. But again, I would also be very interested to hear other experiences there, because these experiences also of, I call them now failure, like when you think something is going terribly wrong here, I think they are the most interesting for us to learn from.
Yeah, if I can, it's maybe a bit impolite as facilitator, but I just wanted to share, and then I take it being impolite, and I'll move to the question in the chat in a minute. But I just wanted to share from my own research that so what we're talking about now is actually the fact that when you, for example, talk about the definition of violence, is actually the core of our research, right? It's actually what we are talking about, and not quite reaching the stage of objectification is actually the core of research. And this phase is being extended, I think, in participatory approaches, or in highlighting participatory approaches as central to not only destabilizing epistemologies, but also ontologies, like ontological claims on what things really are, and what relations are between people, what knowledge actually is, and how it relates to how people can become, not only what they can know, but how people can become. So in that regard, I think so doing research with people with dementia actually is not exceptional in this regard, but it does exaggerate this issue of whether or not we are talking about the same things, whether or not we are participating on a common ground, or whether or not the stakes of the research are clear, or whether or not the fact that this is research is clear, and when it is and when it is not. So it actually, I don't think it's really exceptional, but it does exaggerate a lot of issues that exist, I think. Not that I have that much experience, but reading about participatory research, you find a lot of issues that I also meet, but then sometimes in an exaggerated stage because of the fragmented knowledge, because of the density also of this diagnosis. So the example that I have is that there's a person that I've worked with for 2-3 years. I've been with him through very, very different stages, also in collaboration with his wife. And our project started, or our collaboration started out as during COVID, when his wife was actually looking for somebody to accompany her husband, who was not going to daycare. And this was the moment that I was starting up my research, and I was calling people via the daycare center to check in how they were doing. And so I said, I have a project to his wife and to him. I have a project on dementia, and I am aiming at using audiovisual methods. And you are a photographer. Would you like to join me in this? This is something that we can now do together. And fragments of this remained, fragments of this, like art and a project, and make something that that kind of was common ground between us. What was not was dementia, because this was constantly slipping in and out of this researcher encounter. He knew that I was doing research. He knew that he was a participant, but so this constantly slipped in and out, and this went on for 3 years in different constellations. And often I asked myself, is this ethical? Am I fooling somebody? Am I not being but then in the end, I think if we only stick to these rigid epistemologies, or these epistemological framework in which a truth is a truth and nothing but the truth, then what is participation? So that is, I think, my contribution to the discussion on definitionary power also. I don't know if it's useful, but I still find it quite life-changing experience. So if anybody else in the floor, I'm going to
Yeah, one I wanted to ask something, so we have a question.
Yeah, but it was quite similar to what you asked then at the end when the question had developed. It was about the power relations when it comes to interpretation of data or publication. So I think we discussed it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have another one
from the chat. I have another one from the chat.
Or another one from the online participants.
Yes, I have another one from the chat.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Kayla, Joan, Doris Morales, do you want to speak out yourself?
Actually, Christine, you could show us the chat as well. So
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm that technically skilled, but maybe it's nice for people to talk for themselves.
We see
the chat now.
Okay, cool.
And it was Torres Morales.
Yes, but maybe she wants to talk for herself.
Hello. Yes.
Yes.
I was just wondering, so I just graduated, so I'm wondering if you all have any advice or suggestions for, new emerging scholars who want to use community-based research approaches in kind of their first grants, and when looking for grants and funders and things like that, what kind of tips or advice would you give just in general for someone looking to do this type of work? Thank you.
That's really good one, and I can speak on behalf of our lucky Austrian community, because there is this special funding that Anna mentioned that we applied for, that is really designed for participatory research. It's called Top Citizen Science. However, it's limited to projects that were led in Austria. So that's the only 100% funding that I'm aware of that would really target the participatory calls. I guess when it comes to the local national settings, I can tell that for Poland there is nothing that would specially target participatory work. Not sure about Germany. Anna, would you have any advices?
There are sometimes calls, specifically, especially in citizen science. So I think this is a good buzzword to use if you're searching for funding opportunities. And especially when you're looking into Horizon or the EU funding, I think they very often require, as Anna said before already, participatory approaches as being part of the project, but very often, unfortunately, without giving you the proper resources for doing that. When I see calls, then it's very often from the national research agencies, as in the case of Austria, or in the case of Germany, the DFG. I'm not sure where you are based exactly. So, but maybe there's also this big national research funding agency, and they might be the best to look at. But also, and I was quite surprised that Anna, you didn't say it, in the Coast Association. No, but yeah.
Advertise, please do.
No, but it's really true. I mean, sorry, we're just making fun of it because we're advertising it so much. But we, in the PANET Coast Action, we have quite some funds, especially for early career researchers and researchers from IT countries to support smaller collaborations or short-term scientific missions where you can visit other researchers that are more experienced in participatory approaches and so on. So this is really also not just for you, but for everyone in this room to say that if you're looking for a little bit of funding to start some work off, I think that is a really good, how do you call it, like seed funding thing to go through cost.
Great, thank you.
May I add just one more thing? If that would be the first grant that you would be applying to, I would strongly suggest to pair up with someone who's already experienced, because from my experience, it's really like this, that those projects tend to be overwhelming, and the really amount of time, money, and energy you need to invest, it's really way more than you would expect at the beginning. So it's really great to have a team, or at least one more person who is as devoted to the concept and might have some experiences, so that you can be in this journey together. I can say that if it wasn't for Anna Vanka, I don't think I would be able to go through the whole experiences we made in our participatory projects. So just a small piece of advice, it's really good if you are thinking to use participatory approaches, and those would be the first grants you want to apply for, to have someone with you so that you don't feel overwhelmed with that.
Great, thank you so much.
Well, thanks.
Maybe if I can just add to that, also maybe as a food for thought, I think what is also quite normal in participatory approaches is that there will always be conflicts, because we are the academic researchers and the co-researchers are in different logics and live in different logics. So this is, I think, not an indicator of failure, but it's completely normal, and it's actually saying that, okay, something is going well there, I would actually say. I think we are also, what we talk too little about is the different kinds of power hierarchies that can come into play, especially when we work with older adults, maybe in comparison to other groups, maybe not. But when I'm working, for example, with a person that has been running a company for 40 years and is now retired, and his pension is probably 3 times as much as my salary, and he's a man that is very much used to other people following his orders, then the power hierarchy between me and this co-researcher is not that I am in power, but he will still feel more powerful than myself. So we have also the lines between, you know, power in this group, depending on of who we're working with, can also blur depending on the different positions of the academic researchers and the non-academic researchers. So I think it's not always that easy to say, oh, they're, you know, they must be empowered by us, but maybe they can also sometimes empower us, you know, and are on the other end of the spectrum.
Questions? In the chat or online? We still have like
No questions.
2 questions.
I'm just thinking, but I'm not sure I won't get lost in my question. But when you are planning like bigger research, do you already pair or couple with some NGO? Like, who are the member team? Like, who are the members of the team? Like, do you work with psychologists? How you ensure that the research participants are safe? And how do
Thank you so much for this question. This is actually one of the parts we skipped when we thought, okay, we don't have enough time. But one of the elements that we gathered from the book contribution and from our own experiences is that what actually supports the success of participatory work. And indeed, it's creating the right team. And in this sense, the right team that would be what we experience is that if you have this trust relationship with stakeholder organizations that might help you with reaching out to the participants, this is extremely helpful. Otherwise, you need at least a year to build this trusting relationship. And still, you might end up with those gases where a stakeholder organization might think, okay, this is the right person for you. I will push them into your direction because they are so spoken up or whatever reason they might have. So balancing this motivation to be in the project, because that's also one thing that we didn't really fully address, that it's not only about power relation between researchers and participants, but also those who join the project. So in this case, that would be the, of course, team members, but also the stakeholders organization that might have their own interests for joining the project, and they want to put their own agenda, which again puts you in this very unique position of deciding how do we go along with that. But when it comes to how do we make participants safe, I think, and I also like to highlight that we also should think about ourselves. I think quite often we as researchers underlook our own well-being and push ourselves also too far. So I guess depending on institution, again, I can give amazing examples that there were supports at place in the Irish setting I worked in Poland. We wouldn't have them basically. So I guess if your institution has the possibility to provide and support structures for you as researcher and for your participants, that's optimal. If you don't have that, then what we tend to do is that we list organizations that we know we can trust, and we would have, whenever any specific topic emerges or we see that there are any tensions, we would address that by providing the contact details. So not to push it too much on yourself, to be the one that calms the situation down and is trying to resolve all the issues, but actually specialize either within the group or also with outside resources. But of course, then again, this links us back to the question of funding and available support structures. Some countries are very privileged. I think Anna can give us some great examples of what's available in university in Frankfurt, and others are really not there yet.
Maybe never will be.
Yeah. Oh, come on, with work that we're trying to do in Canada and we invited to do, I think there is a room for making this visible to, I mean, even through the work on writing the manifestos and just stating that there are those issues, and some countries know how to address them because some really know. and we can not only try to learn from best practices, but actually try to implement those best practices in our local context.
Well, there are also calls for funding that focus precisely on disseminating results. So I think that participatory approaches can be pushed toward this direction. So maybe not precise funding scheme, but it's a theme that you can address when you write a project for a call.
Yes, definitely. I'm not sure if online participants could hear us, but indeed, that's a good way to think about implementing participatory approaches, at least in this stage.
We have a question online.
And this doesn't need to be a question. You can also share your own experiences, because I think that's also the
comments,
big point
general.
of those meetings.
Not only the chat, but also maybe we have time for one more.
I think it's interesting to think about the resources, because I'm a member of Carnet, working group 2, so this is part of the advertising. And I tried at the beginning to get some of our collaboration partners from the stakeholders in the Carnet, because I thought it's a good place where they could be. And it was just difficult. They didn't want to, because it's time, it's English. So the whole scientific system, what do they want? Then they have to change something. And it was really lots of, and finally they didn't join. And I thought this is the place where we can really discuss things. And I found this very interesting, because it's very often the first question in collaborating with stakeholders, not with co-creators, but with stakeholders, is how much time?
Yeah.
So, and this is interesting for the participatory approaches, because they ask for more time sometimes, but also for better results and for improving structures. But it's this step to convince.
Exactly, and it takes a lot of convincing. And from the experiences I made, usually the ones that are in and are willing to contribute this time, they really have their own agenda. And
yes,
they do that. Yeah, for
if they do what they
exactly. So this exchange, and of course on the cost, it's again this very specific funding scheme that requires a lot of also on this administrative level. So I'm not surprised. We unfortunately we are aware that quite a few great organizations didn't decide to join precisely for this reason, that they were afraid it will take too much of their time, and also they kind of collapsed at the stage of filling in the form, because it is long. But for those of you who want to do it, it's all once you fill this form only once. And if you do it for our cost action, then you will have the profile in ecosystem already, so you can go and apply for funding opportunities and join the meetings of other cost actions that are active now or will be active in the future. So it totally works.
Yeah, it's like that.
And it's maybe really the question of motivation that you touched in your book as well. Some of the chapters are exactly about motivation, why to join as a co-creator. And we also have another workshop on Friday afternoon in this on-site seminar here in Bratislava. So I think that's because motivation is the crucial part of cooperation. Just find the proper one.
Exactly, the proper one.
Okay. So if there are no
So
more
normally
questions,
you should see the cost action grow after this meeting. I did some great progress there, which is good. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I apologize for the background noise. Should there be any? But my kids came home and
maybe we have like 2 announcements.
yes.
The first one is maybe I could just start, Christine, because I see some of the participants of our on-site meeting here in the.
Go ahead.
I would like to ask them if those of them who still didn't decide if they would like to come or not, if they would let us know so we can better adjust the program. So please express your interest or confirm your participation, because it's like 2 days. So we really need to know whether you are planning to come to Bratislava or not. So that was the first. Thank you very much, and looking forward to meeting you. Some of you, I see the names, I'm already looking forward to meeting you. You don't need a lot of us. Utekal and Anya and Francesca, me, Christine, and yeah, that will be a lot of my colleagues from the Institute as well. That will be a nice session, I hope. And I see Nora, hi. And the second one, shall I say that? Or
The council.
Shall I bring the bad news then?
yes.
Shall I bring the bad news?
Sorry, but sorry, Christine.
She sent an automatic reply, Christine. So
What?
unfortunately, the last speaker is ill. So as Christine wrote in the last email, we have to cancel the next webinar. And so we finish for today and see all other persons in Bratislava in 2 days.
Yes, Matthew sent his greetings. He wasn't able to join us in the afternoon session or the evening session, but anyway, we'll have another time slot reserved for him. I think maybe next year, so in 2026, but definitely you will not.
Correct that. Let me correct that because so apparently it could also be this year or next year, but I would definitely want to invite people to subscribe to our mailing list. I will again, I don't know, I probably did this already, but I will again post the webpage. I'm sorry, give me a second. So where you can subscribe to our mailing list and where we can keep you informed about any future events that will definitely come. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted here.
Challenges. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. That's nice.
Thank you.
So maybe we made some participants more afraid of participatory research.
Don't be afraid. Like it's just, I guess, about really finding the right partners. And then if you have the right group, then it's pure fun. Of course, a lot of challenges, always a lot of challenges, but it's totally worth it.
Okay, so you have now the web page, and we can send it in the email because we got all your emails. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you all on site tomorrow. Anna and Annas, thank you for such a wonderful contribution also. And I'm looking forward to reading some of the 32 chapters of the book. It's not holiday literature, or maybe it is. So really looking forward to that. And Anna Urbaniaka will be seeing you tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, as well as Lubita and Francesco. So the recordings of this session will be posted online, also on the EASA HNet website for you to consult. The link to the book is in the chat, as well as the link to the cost action. And if you need any further information, to get in touch with us. Looking forward also to seeing the participants in Bratislava. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nice evening. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful time there.
Yes,
I'm
you too.
really
Bye-bye.
jealous. Bye.
Next time.
Yes.
Not the last one. Thank you. You are doing good. You can just